Hi, and welcome to Sci-Fi Fans. And this episode, I'm going to be taking a little dabble into the origins of science fiction. I'm Wayne, and welcome. So, science fiction is obviously abbreviated to sci-fi, and that's where I kind of get the name for this channel because I am a massive science fiction fan, geek, nerd. Call me what you want. I really don't care. I grew up on the subject matter with Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, and that's where it started off for me. Favorite film of all time is Aliens. Best sequel of all time is Aliens. I wouldn't say the best franchise because it did take a nosedive after Aliens, but Aliens. So anyway, where did science fiction all begin, or begin even? Ancient myths and stories, really. You go back to ancient civilizations such as the Greeks and the Romans, they all included elements of science fiction for their myths. Works like work likes Works like Lucian's True History, a 2nd century AD, featured travel to outer space and interplanetary warfare, showcasing early speculative storytelling. So it's not really something that it's nothing new. It's something that's been there pretty much since the dawn of time. Renaissance and Enlightenment. During the Renaissance, writers like Thomas More with Utopia 1516 and Jonas Kepler with Sommerium in 1608 introduced speculative narratives about ideal societies and lunar travel, respectively. The birth of modern science fiction began in 1818 with Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I will get these words out. Often considered as the first true science fiction novel, Frankenstein explores themes of scientific hubris and the ethical implications of creating life. Mary Shelley's work laid the foundation for the genre by combining scientific curiosity with Gothic elements. Moving on to slightly later, we have Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. Now, for me, H.G. Wells may not be considered the creator of science fiction, but for me, he is the science fiction author of all time. And if you disagree with me, that's fair enough. But do get in touch and let me know who you feel is a better science fiction writer than H.G. Wells. In the late 19th century, Jules Verne and H.G. Wells became pioneers of science fiction. Jules Verne, known for his adventure novels such as Journey to the Centre of the Earth in 1864, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1870, and Around the World in 80 Days, 1872. Verne's work focuses on technology and advancement and exploration. H.G. Wells, often called father of science fiction, and quite rightly so as far as I'm concerned, Wells authored seminal works like The Time Machine in 1895 and The War of the Worlds. Often people call it War of the Worlds, but the actual title is The War of the Worlds in 1898 and The Invisible Man in 1897. His stories often examined the social and ethical implications of scientific discoveries. Moving on in time, the golden age of science fiction is considered to be between the 1930s and the 1950s. This period is known as the golden age of science fiction, marked by the emergence of influential writers and the proliferation of science fiction magazines. John W. Campbell, as the editor of Outstanding Science Fiction magazine, Campbell played a crucial role in shaping the genre, nurturing writers like Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke. Isaac Asimov, known for the Foundation series, which I believe is a Apple TV show, and Robots series. Asimov work explored robotics and the future of human civilization. Robert A. Heinlein, with novels like Stranger in a Strange Land in 1961 and Starship Troopers, which was made into a film in 1959. Heinlein developed Well, he delved into themes of individualism, military life, and political systems. Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey in 1968 and other works examined the intersection of humanity and advanced technology. And incidents, we all know 2001 A Space Odyssey was also made into a film. Science fiction then moved on to what's considered to be the new wave and contemporary in the 1960s and 80s. The New Wave movement brought a more literal and experimental approach to science fiction, and I think something that's quite prevalent within storytelling and science fiction is as technology evolves, then people's ideas on how that technology can evolve with us in stories and so forth becomes more prevalent. Because let's face it, in H.G. Wells's time, they weren't considering having mobile phones, but they were considering the possibility of being able to communicate long distances. Everything based in the original Star Trek universe is founded in science as well. So, as science develops, the possibilities and the realms of science fiction grows as well. I think science and science fiction are two things that kind of nurture each other. Without the science fiction, you wouldn't necessarily get the science. And what I mean by that is, without the idea of having a communicator in your hand, the telephone, which is now modern day telephone, science wouldn't consider developing such technologies. So the two, I believe, are interwoven on that kind of level. So where were we? The new wave of science fiction, Philip K. Dick, his novels such as Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which incidentally was the basis for the film Blade Runner in 1968, explored reality, identity, and consciousness. And this is what I was just saying a second ago, where without the technology, you don't necessarily have the idea, and then but also without the idea you might not necessarily develop the technology. So it's a bit like the chicken and the egg, which one come first. Ursula K. Le Guin wrote works such as The Left Hand of Darkness in 1969. Le Guin introduced anthropical and science logical perspective to the genre, focusing on gender and culture diversity. The 1980s to present contemporary science fiction continues to evolve, exploring new technologies and social issues. William Gibson, often credited with pioneering the cyberpunk genre with his novel Necromancer in 1984. Gibson works delves into cyberspace, artificial intelligence, and corporate control. And I think, again, this is something in reality that is happening more and more. When you look around the world or look at the world around you, you can see there's more and more corporate control and mission creep from all of these big tech companies. Look at the technology that we use now. Look who owns that technology and look how they use that technology. We're using a platform now which is governed by big tech. I can't say anything on this particular platform that would offend big tech, because if I say the wrong thing, they can shut the platform down. So there is that essence of censorship and control. Apple has this marvelous products, but they're also secretly tracking everything that you do. Google, Facebook, we're constantly being monitored. And if you was to take this and put it into a dystopian future, we're kind of there already. I don't want to be a downer, but if you look at how the world has evolved and these utopian societies that we are kind of warned about in fiction, we aren't far off it, are we? But I do digress. Margaret Atwood, known for the Humanoids, the Handmaid's Tale, sorry, not the Humanoids, the Handmaid's Tale in 1985. Atwood's speculative fiction examines dystopian futures and feminist themes. like I said, we are on the edge. It's a very interesting time to be alive, I feel, because we can go one of two ways. We can either have this euphoria and utopia society where technology works in our favour and everybody benefits, or we can go to a dystopian future where things are going to go to the wall. We're going to be controlled, and things are going to disappear rapidly. 15-minute cities, for example. All these things have been written about. Orson Welles is not Orson Welles, or what is wrong with my words, my language tonight? Um, we'll just go to the book, 1984. Orson it is Orson Welles, isn't it? Orson. Um, yeah, I've lost the plot. Help. Let's rely on some technology. Um, yeah, if you read the story of 1984, we are kind of there with everything that's tracking us, and they sell it to you as an advantage. This is going to help you. Facebook is one of the big things that it benefits a lot of people worldwide, but just consider for a moment how much data you're handing over to a faceless multinational company that is going to be using that data. TikTok is a social media platform that I use quite a lot, but also consider how much technology is behind TikTok. The algorithms, they're all stealing data. There isn't a perfect company or organization when it comes to social media. They're all, in my opinion, they're all tracking you. They're all wanting to sell you something, and they're trying to make humanity a product, basically. Um, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, haven't I? This was supposed to be an episode talking about science fiction. I've just had here a 5-minute ramble about how life is in the real world. So, bringing the written science fiction world to a seminal conclusion, science fiction has evolved significantly from its early speculative roots to a diverse and expansive genre. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is widely regarded as the first modern science fiction novel, marking the beginning of a rich literary tradition that continues to inspire and challenge readers with its imaginative and thought-provoking narratives. Now, if we compare the literature to cinema, and where did science fiction begin on film? Now, the history of science fiction in movies is quite a fascinating journey through the development of cinema itself, marked by groundbreaking special effects, visionary storytelling, and the exploration of speculative concepts. And just think about how movies have changed. So, in the early 1900s, when films were silent, George Méliès, often regarded as the father of special effects, Méliès' short film A Trip to the Moon in 1902 is one of the earliest and most iconic science fiction films. It depicted a fantastical voyage to the moon and featured innovative special effects for its time. And we wouldn't have the films that we have today without the special effects and the level of thinking, thinking outside the box to create special effects from the 1900s, so over 100 years ago. Fitz Lang's film Metropolis in 1927 is a landmark in the genre, and it actually has big influence on films from today, including, all right, not quite today, but kind of today. Star Wars, the robot from Metropolis, is the inspiration behind C-3PO. Now, it was a landmark for the genre, and it was a German film. It was an expressionist film, explored themes of the class struggle and futuristic urban dystopia, with visually stunning set designs and groundbreaking special effects. Unfortunately, as far as I am aware, the film is not available in its entirety. There has been some restoration projects over the years to have a completed edition of Metropolis. I would love to see it. Um, so if anyone out there has got a copy, or you know where we can watch the full film, then please do get in touch, because for me, Trip to the Moon is possibly regarded as the first science fiction film, but Metropolis, I think, is the film that really gets people thinking and talking about the genre. So Hollywood moved into its golden age and post-war era in the 1930s to 1950s. Things to Come in 1936 was directed by William Cameron Menzies and was based on H.G. Wells's work. The film predicted future technological advancements and global conflict, reflecting the anxieties of the time. Now, in 1936, there would have been an underlying fear of war, given the fact that it hadn't been 20, 30 years since the end of the First World War, and it was quite obvious in Europe, at least, that things were, but they weren't going to remain peaceful forever. Then we have in 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Robert Wise. Now, this film told the story of an alien visitor who comes to Earth with a warning for humanity, reflecting Cold War fears and the possibility of nuclear annihilation. So, in the 1930s, up to probably, well, even the 1980s, there was this fear that the world was going to annihilate itself, with the Cold War looming, ever present. Growing up in a period of history where the world could have been annihilated in a matter of hours, on reflection, is quite outstanding and quite poignant, really, when you realise, for my generation, the fact that we could have been obliterated and not known the reason why, or not even known when or how. We're just, one nuclear missile, and that's it. We could have been gone. So it is quite interesting on reflection, looking back at the films that were out there for peace. The Day the Earth Stood Still is one of them. Forbidden Planet in 1956, directed by Fred M. Wilcox, was notable for its special effects, futuristic set design, and the introduction of the iconic robot Robbie. So, moving on to the 1960s and the 1970s, science fiction really kind of picked up in this particular era, with 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968, directed by Stanley Kubrick and, of course, co-written by Arthur C. Clarke. This film is celebrated for its realistic depiction of space travel, philosophical themes, and pioneering special effects. It remains a touchstone in science fiction cinema. Later on, we have in 1968, as well in 1968 even, we have Planet of the Apes, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner and based on Perry Belew's novel. The film featured a dystopian future where humans are subjugated by intelligent apes. It was notable for its social commentary and makeup effects. Now, we sit in a period of wokeness where you can look at a film and be hit over the head with the message. We know what that message is, and it's all about inclusion. But I feel the difference with the messaging in modern films to previous films is that in previous films it was a lot more subtle, and it was actually done in a clever, innovative storytelling way. These days, you look at anything that Disney produces and it's so homogenized that there's no original storytelling anymore. So the problem with that is you get a stale effect for the audience, because why would you want to watch something that you've seen 100 times already? If you want to have a film with a strong female lead, then look at the films that have done it successfully. I don't think any of them have been in the last 10 years. The exception possibly is the Mockingbird Hunger Games series films. But even so, the recent one, which came out this year, flopped. I didn't see it myself, but it didn't do too well at the cinema. So I think you can have the messaging, but do it in a clever way. There were kids TV shows in the 80s would have a moral message at the end of it, He-Man in particular, which were fun to watch, entertaining. And that is what modern movies, modern storytellers seem to have lost. It's all very well having a story and then filling it full of agenda and messaging, but who wants that? I've done another rant, haven't I? Gone off on another tangent. Anyway, while I'm talking about authors and stuff, I've got a book myself, so I'm putting my money where my mouth is. It's called Broken Ceasefire and is available on the Amazon bookstore. If you have the unlimited Kindle Unlimited program, download a copy for free. So if you made it this far and you get a copy of my book, that's how I'm going to know that you've done that. Getting back to modern science fiction, Star Wars 1977, directed by George Lucas, and this film really revolutionized the genre and the film industry with its epic space opera storytelling, groundbreaking special effects which had to be created on the fly. A lot of the sounds they didn't have, so they had to find these sounds, the laser bolts, the lightsabers. I mean, Star Wars is the pinnacle of science fiction and capitalism at the same time, with merchandising. George Lucas was very clever when he came up with the financing for Star Wars and the deal. I mean, also, I am going to mention it because it's missing here on my script. 1979, Alien showed you what science fiction horror could be like, and gave birth to two of the best films of all time. The rise of the blockbusters and special effects really happened in the 1980s and the 1990s. Blade Runner 1982, directed by Ridley Scott and based on Phil K. Dickens' novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which I mentioned earlier. This film is renowned for its atmospheric depiction of a dystopian future and its exploration of artificial intelligence and human identity. It's a brilliant film. It flopped at the box office. The Thing came out at the same time, and that also flopped at the box office for a very good reason. And that one's coming up. So the reason why the Blade Runner and The Thing flopped was because of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Directed by Steven Spielberg, this heartwarming tale of a young boy befriending an alien became one of the highest grossing films of its time. In fact, it became the highest grossing film of all time for a long time and a cultural phenomenon. Incidentally, side note, I have heard the possibility of them doing a sequel with E.T. coming back and Elliot, but they're going to do it in the modern times that Elliot would have been grown up. Also, you probably know this already, but there is a scene in the Phantom Menace, I think, or is it the second one? What's the second episode 2? Clone Wars. There is a scene with the ET aliens in a pod, and that's done more tongue in cheek by George Lucas because he's great friends with Steven Spielberg. And so the blockbusters continued in 1984 with The Terminator, and then The Terminator Judgment Day in 1991, both directed by James Cameron, and these films featured groundbreaking special effects and explored themes of artificial intelligence and time travel, solidifying Arnold Schwarzenegger as an action star. Now, I'm not going to leave the 90s or the 80s without mentioning Aliens. Best sequel ever, in my opinion. Aliens, another James Cameron film, has it all. And if you didn't know, there is a documentary coming out called Aliens Expanded, and it's well worth it. I saw a rough cut of it a couple of weeks ago. So do check out Aliens Expanded. It's fantastic. The Matrix in 1999, directed by the Wachowskis, This film combined cyberpunk aesthetics with innovative special effects, notably bullet time. Bullet time went on to be parodied in something like 20 plus films after this came out. So, the turn of the century, and we had Inception in 2010, directed by Christopher Nolan. This film explored dreams within dreams and the nature of reality, featuring complex storytelling and impressive visual effects. Inception is one of those films that you really have to sit down and watch. Um, yeah, because if you don't, it's very easy to miss key points in it, and then you get totally lost. Interstellar in 2014, also directed by Christopher Nolan, and this film focused on space exploration and survival of humanity, grounded in scientific theory about black holes and reality. Um, I wasn't impressed with Interstellar in 2014, to be totally honest. I watched it and I just kind of expected a bit more from it. Arrival in 2016, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and based on Ted Chigin's novella. This film explored language, communication with extraterrestrials, and the non-linear nature of time. Not a film that I've watched, so I can't really give you an opinion about it. But I mean, this is just examples about how science fiction has shaped our culture, it's shaped who we are, it's shaped society, and it's shaped the world that we live in. Um, so, yeah, I mean, with that, I'm just going to conclude with science fiction movies have evolved from simple speculative tales to complex explorations of technology, science, and existential questions. Early films like Georgia Mellet's A Trip to the Moon and Fritz Lang's Metropolis laid the groundwork with landmark films. While landmark, I might do this earlier on in the day. Go to the pub, have a few beers. I might sound a bit better. Yeah, while landmark films like 2001 Space Odyssey and Star Wars pushed the boundaries of special effects and storytelling, today the genre continues to thrive with innovative films that challenge our perceptions and imaginations. They do, they can, but we need to come out of this woke nonsense that is just driving true fans up the wall. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about how books and movies have been combined, or well, yeah, they're combined, aren't they? If you make an adaptation, it's a combination, isn't it? So books have obviously been a rich source of inspiration for science fiction films, resulting in many adaptations that have become classics in their own right. And here are a few notable influential films. Frankenstein, obviously the first, credited to be the first science fiction book. The film Frankenstein in 1931, directed by James Whale. Overview: this Universal Pictures film is one of the earliest and most iconic adaptation of Shelley's novel. It introduced Boris Karloff as the monster and established many visual and thematic elements that would become staples in the horror genre. The War of the Worlds. The War of the Worlds, 1953. Directed by Brian Haskin. The Cold War era adaptation of Wells's novel about Martian invasions is notable for its special effects and the way it reflects contemporary anxieties about global conflict and nuclear war. It did deviate a little bit from the book, but to be honest, out of all of the War of the Worlds films that have been made, it is probably the best. And I say that with pure honesty, really. The Steven Spielberg's one with Tom Cruise, I fell asleep. It was boring. Didn't like it. But if you want the best adaptation of The War of the Worlds, then listen to the musical version, Jeff Wayne's musical version, which was released in 1978. Phenomenal, classic. If you get a chance to go and see the show, go and see the live show. I don't think it's the same since they've dropped some of the cast, David Essex, for example. But go and see it. If you can, get the opportunity to see The War of the Worlds live on stage, go and see it. The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. I think Day of the Triffids gets overlooked because of the success and the popularity of the War of the Worlds, but Day of the Triffids is another classic, iconic story. So the Day of the Triffids in 1962 was directed by Steve Skelly. The adaptation of Winidum's post-apocalyptic novel about a world overrun by deadly plants combined suspense and science fiction, although it took liberties with the source material. So I think a lot of films do that, though, don't they? 2001 Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. The film 2001 Space Odyssey in 1968 actually was also the inspiration for the song A Space Oddity. Um, and I've forgotten the artist's name. Sorry. God, he's on the tip of my lips. Tip of my lips. Tip of my tongue. This is really an atrocious episode, isn't it? But I'm only human. So Stanley Kubrick directed 2001 Space Odyssey, and the script was co-written with Arthur C. Clarke. The film is a seminal work in science fiction cinema, known for its ambitious narrative, stunning visual effects, and philosophical depth. The book and the film were developed simultaneously, with the novel providing a clear narrative for the enigmatic story. Moving on to later on the 20th century, and A Clockwork Orange, which is another Stanley Kubrick film. Clockwork Orange in 1971 was an overview of, or rather, it was Kubrick's adaptation of Burge's dystopian novel about a violent youth culture and state control becoming controversial for its graphic content and exploration of free will and morality. And how true that film and story is by today's standards. I mean, that's just an example, really, where we are heading towards some of this dystopian futures that we have seen in fiction becoming a reality. We can stop it. I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. We can stop it. We just need to do something about it now. Do droids dream of electric sheep? Blade Runner. I mentioned that already. Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. The film Jurassic Park 1993 was directed by Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg's adaptation of Crichton's novel about a dinosaur theme park gone wrong was a massive success, known for its groundbreaking use of CGI and animatronics, and it spawned a major film franchise. 2021st century adaptation, so Minority Report by Phil K. Dick. The film Minority Report, released in 2002, was again directed by Steven Spielberg. The adaptation of Dick's short story explores themes of free will and surveillance in a future where crimes are prevented before they occur. The film was praised for its thought-provoking narrative and visual effects. The Hunger Games, 2012, directed by Gary Ross. The adaptation of Collins's dystopian novel about a televised death match in a totalitarian society became a cultural phenomenon, highlighting issues of inequality and media manipulation. I'm not going to say it. The Martian by Andy Weir. The film was made in 2015 and directed by Ridley Scott. The adaptation of Weir's novel about an astronaut stranded on Mars was praised for its scientific accuracy, engaging storyline, and Matt Damon's performance. Arrival, based on the short story Story of Your Life by Ted Ching. Director Denis Villeneuve. The adaptation of Ching's story explores themes of language, time, and human connection through the lens of first contact with an alien species. The film received critical acclaim for its thought-provoking narrative and emotional depth. So, in conclusion, and also this is where I'm going to be ending the episode of Sci-Fi Fans, these adaptations demonstrate the enduring appeal and versatility of science fiction literature as a source for cinematic storytelling. From early silent films to modern blockbusters, science fiction books have proved rich narratives and imaginative worlds that filmmakers have brought to life on the big screen. And yeah, I can attain to that because my own stories have really been inspired by what I grew up on with Battlestar Galactica, kind of playing a big role in my own universe that I've created. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm going to end this episode. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and stay safe. And I'll see you next week for some more movie trivia and chat. Thank you.